Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. This is the first time we do a live Zoom poster session. We try to mimic an in-person experience by limiting our talk short and open it up for questions and discussions. I will send the slides link to the chat so you can go back and forth as needed. First of all, I'd like to introduce our team. I'm Yale from UC Santa Barbara. My two wonderful teammates are Tomoko from UCLA and Jude from Yale. If we don't have enough time to address your questions here, please feel free to email us. We're more than happy to chat with you offline. In this presentation, I will first give you some background information, followed by a brief review of literature. Then I will talk about the current state of monograph publishing in China, Japan, and Korea, and discuss some common issues and deficiencies in CGK ebooks. And finally, what our conclusions are. I believe we all witnessed a steady budget decrease for print materials prior to COVID-19. Here's some data from recent studies. The pandemic only has accelerated this trend. Plus, studies on East Asian monograph publishing is limited. We believe there's a need to study this topic. We know the East Asian collection we work with is print-focused. The CEAL data shows that the average percentage of our budget spent on print materials hasn't changed much over the past years. We see humanities and social sciences user preference for print materials, preference for books and book chapters over journal articles. Literature supports our conception. Moreover, scholars, especially area studies scholars, cite a large amount of foreign language sources. So it's important to study the monopublishing in East Asian countries. We went into Gobi and generated a list of all books related to East Asia published in 2017 and 18. The books are in all major LC classes except for E, History of America, of course. In this pie chart, we listed classes that exceeded 5% of the overall publication separately. We assume that CGK books that fall in these classes are more likely to be collected in North America. We used the 5 LC classes identified from the Gobi data and mapped against the classifications in mainland China, Taiwan, Japan, and Korea. This table gives you some ideas of the selection workload of those who manage collection budgets. In general, the numbers of print titles in China and Korea has increased steadily in the past 5 years. The numbers of titles published in Japan and Taiwan declined a bit, but the number is still enormous compared with the published English titles. In the next section, I will talk about 4 common issues of the CGK ebooks and what we could do. We've seen a growth in non-academic popular content, but not so much in scholarly works. Ebook publishing can be hard to predict. Take Taiwan, for example. In 2015 and 16, ebooks only constituted a bit over 5% out of the total new publications. The number increased to 10% in 2017 and 11% in 2018, but it dropped to 4% in 2019. We need to advocate for publishers to include more scholarly books and books published by independent and smaller publishers. We also need to advocate for simultaneous releasing of print and ebooks so we can choose the format. If users are able to find ebooks from the library's discovery system depends on local cataloging capacity and practices. We can educate vendors to supply better records to improve ebooks discoverability. Ebook distributors apply DRM technology and require users to install software to read ebooks. Take Korea, for example. The e-viewers vary from one distributor to another. E-viewers' compatibility with browsers can be another issue. More libraries began to enforce ADA compliance when licensing new e-content. The unwanted removal of content isn't uncommon for Chinese ebooks. Censorship and copyright are 2 major reasons. We need to encourage and remind users to report issues whenever they find them. It is unreasonable to ask foreign vendors to comply with ADA requirements. We need to educate licensing librarians to be more inclusive when they work with foreign vendors. In the meantime, we could educate East Asian publishers and vendors about internationally recognized guidelines, such as those issued by the World Wide Web Consortium. Perpetual access is another topic that needs more exploration. We know that ebook chapters can't be shared beyond one institution, sometimes not even allowed for course packs. The COVID-19 pandemic makes controlled digital lending a hot topic, but it's a gray area. HathiTrust eTask works, but Internet Archive's National Emergency Library had a lawsuit. Even if CDL is allowed, most libraries have zero or limited capacity to implement it. We need to be proactive in negotiating interlibrary loan terms and scholarly sharing terms, and advocate for revising copyright laws and regulations to make sharing easier. Finally, it's a conclusion. I'd rather frame it what we can do next. The freeze crisis includes both danger and opportunity. First, we need to try our best to push back the e-preferred collection policy. In the long run, it will weaken the collection by creating a gap that may not be easily bridged, and thus undermine the research of scholars and students we serve. Last but not least, collaborative collection development is the only way to build stronger collections to support the development and future of the discipline. We will experience difficulties at the beginning, but let's start talking today. Here are the sources. Thank you, and we're happy to answer questions or hear your comments.